Brutal. I had a chance to go to, it was an Olympic trial boxing event. So it was probably 10 or 12 fights we got to watch in a row. And it was really cool, very entertaining, and you realize, how strong and athletic those guys are. But to watch, I wasn't related to any of them. Right? There were no names to me, right? So if I were to see my kids doing that, that'd be different. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I get it. Too much brain damage involved. You hang out with the gaggle of elder wives? They're on the groove. You gotta show up to the nursery. Yeah, that's the assigned seats, I think.
I love fried chicken. It's so good. I love it. Oh, wait, I wish it was like famous on YouTube. It's like a good sound.
I guess it's about time for us to get going here.
What do you say?
I wonder how long you guys are going to be okay sitting in the sun right in your eyes. I'm seeing you over there, and I'm like, they're going to end up moving. Yeah, you can kind of lean back in the corner there, Scott. You're good. Hello, sir.
It's like I do have a family in here.
Oh, we have to kiss the ring or anything? What do I do? I don't know. Sorry. He's the only one that kisses the ring. Yeah. I'll get to pick on him for a little while at least. It's good for him. We are on lesson 13. Page 77 will be covering the first part of 1 Corinthians chapter 10.
I thought you were talking about fantasy football for a minute.
No.
I was like, don't give me the crown already.
I won't give you the crown yet, but I will say it won't be me because it just never is. So that's fine.
Well, there's always the first time.
I don't know. Before we get started, hey Perry, would you mind leading us in a prayer, please, sir?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today and for all of our blessings, the time you gave us to come out of the world tonight to be with our brothers and sisters, to be strengthened and encouraged and to be renewed the rest of this week. Help us tonight to worship you with our whole heart. Help that you, ask that you be with Logan and the other teachers. Help them to teach the things that they prepare in a way that's easy for us to understand and apply to our lives and, when possible, apply to the lives of those around us. In your son's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, on Sunday, we were in chapter 9, and what was the big takeaway from chapter 9? Hello? Hello? Big takeaway from chapter 9. What was Paul talking about? Yep. His willingness and desire to give up his rights, things that he could do, in allowing or avoiding, anything that could be misconstrued, and then ensuring that his focus was in the right place. The big takeaway there was just the discussion of how we manage those things, how we manage our liberties, and it really all boils down to love. I could do this. I have the right to do fill in the blank. I have the right to, whatever the scenario is, because the Bible doesn't explicitly say something related to it, and it's not a matter of sin. However, his case, they were talking about meat sacrificed to idols, whereas they could eat it. He also discussed some of the other things that he gave up. He spoke in depth about how he had the right to be supported financially for his preaching, for what he was doing, but that he chose not to do it. In fact, he would rather die than basically stand in the way or cause anybody to stumble. Has he always had that mentality? It's a pretty vague question. But what do we know about his history?
He persecuted the Jews.
He persecuted the Jews.
Very well-educated man.
He's a well-educated man.
Did
he say that again?
He was all in, whichever way he went.
Okay. Yeah, he was all in. What's Acts 23:1 say? It's right in line with what you just said.
He said, I'm all in.
Basically.
All in.
Basically.
Can we read it?
Please do.
Acts 23 what?
1.
Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day. Yes, sir.
That's exactly what you said. So, everything he had done to that point, he had done in all good conscience. And we look at his willingness here in chapter 9 to give up so many of his liberties. That falls right in line with the type of person he was. Now, even when he was persecuting Christians, he did that to the best of his ability. He was wrong. And when he was pointed out the error of his ways, when he was seen that it was wrong, complete 180, hard line the other direction. And that's a lot that we can learn from. If nothing else, his entire life, he was all in, exactly like you said. All right, we didn't get to the very end of 1 Corinthians 9, and I feel like Chrissy should have held off one think Jacob should have been able to talk about the runners. And I've only been proper. Believe it or not, I don't run marathons. What he says here at the end of chapter 9, verse 24, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body, keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So put that in your own words in context of what we studied in the rest of chapter 9. What's he saying?
Do the best you can.
Do your best. He talks specifically about runners running a race. You can look at the history of this area. They had the equivalent of Olympic type games in this scenario. So people would have understood what he was talking about. They would have understood the discipline that it took. In this example here, I mean, you think about what it takes to be the best at whatever the scenario is, running a race, boxing, not even athletic things, other things. What is it that it takes to do those things? It does take letting go of liberties, right? If I want to get myself in better shape, if I want to be healthier, I know that I probably shouldn't eat the triple cheeseburger with bacon. I'll get the Diet Coke, it balances out. Can I eat that? Sure. I have the liberty to eat that. I can do it. Yeah, I do it. So
Not on a daily basis.
Not on a daily basis. Okay. So isn't that kind of the life of a Christian encapsulated in what it is? It's measurement. It's control. It's not too much of any one thing, right? If you're talking about keeping your body in subjection physically, you have to limit things. You have to watch what it is that you consume. If you're looking at your liberties, if you're so focused on the liberties and that's all you focus on, then you miss out on the love aspect. That's the thing.
I just goes along with Jenny's comment about, or whoever said he's all in and you have purpose. You've got a plan, you know where you're headed, you have purpose to get there, and you are all in to try to get there. That's kind of what that sounds like.
Anybody ever been on a team at work or in sports that was just completely dysfunctional? She's like, oh yeah. Tell me about it. Was it work or was it sports?
Sports.
Sports. Okay, what's sport?
Tennis.
Tennis. All right. It's an individual sport. What are we talking about here?
Team.
Oh, okay, all right. What was it, do you think, or what were some of the things that you noticed that made it dysfunctional?
Well, for one, everyone was going against each other.
Okay.
There was no teamwork.
No teamwork. Getting too competitive for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all remember that year the Lakers had, was it Shaq, Karl Malone, Kobe, yeah. They had like 5 Hall of Famers in the starting lineup. They were bad. They were not good, right? Individually, they were all amazing, but it just didn't work.
You need that AC Green.
Yeah, you need a glue guy, right? At work, I mean, sometimes you're a part of a group that things just aren't going together. You're not on the same page. You're not working together. You're too competitive. Nobody trusts each other. You're all fighting against each other. What's the first thing you should do to fix these scenarios?
Come up with a common goal.
Okay, exactly. If you don't have a common goal or a common purpose, then good luck getting everybody on the same page. But if you have a common goal, if you have a common purpose, then you can tie everything it is that you're doing towards that purpose. You can hold each other accountable to that purpose. You can give them empowerment to hold you accountable to that purpose. And if anybody on that team is not fighting for that same goal, then everybody should be able to recognize that and call that out, and you fix it. Or you get rid of somebody and you find AC Green to put on your team, right? Whatever it is. In this scenario, with Paul, you look lot of the things he's talking about doing. And when you look at a team aspect, a lot of times you do have to give up some things. You know, if you have, you know, two of the best players in the world on the same team, somebody's going to have to give a little. Yes, sir.
Well, so the funny thing about Paul, of course, you know, I think God had a plan for Paul in that he did persecute Christians, and for him to change and to become an apostle and what he became, first off, it made everybody stop and look, right? Everybody, they're like, what is this? I mean, you know, why? But God used him for his purpose, right? And the funny thing was that Paul, throughout his teachings, and when you're going through it, it's like it's something he's always trying to overcome, and there's a certain amount of humility that Paul uses, right? So if you go to 1 Corinthians 15:9, for example, right? And just reading the next couple of verses, I really like this, and I think it goes towards your point here, Logan, where you're trying to get to. He says, "For I am the least of the apostles, who am not worthy to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God.
Mm-hmm.
But by the grace of God, I am what I am. His grace toward me was not in vain, but I labored more abundantly than they all. Yet not I, but the grace of God, which was with me." Right? Paul is constant.
I was a mess. I don't deserve the blessings I've been given.
Right.
But I worked really hard.
Oh, I'm out of work every month.
Yeah.
Right? And he didn't know how not to excel, right? And whatever he did, like you said, he was going to be all in and go for it, right? Paul did that. But God used Paul, I mean, to show his glory. And then Paul, his entire life, had to fight through that because everybody looked at him and they were like, okay, wait a minute, weren't you the guy that was putting everybody? You know, so there was a certain amount of humility that Paul had to have going, but he had to get after it to overcome it.
Well, you look at the reward as what makes it worth it. Still, the example, I remember my first few weeks of professional life as a PT. I was talking with a guy who'd been doing it for 40-something years. And he had a cushy, 3-day a week, get off at 3 p.m. kind of schedule. And I said, hey, man, how do I get me one of those schedules? He said, you got to do it really good for 4 years. I said, oh, that sounds like a lot. Fast forward 16 years, I've got a little bit of flexibility in my role now. And I had a similar conversation to somebody else. And they're like, man, it seems like you've, worked really hard to get, kind of where you are. I'm like, yeah. He's like, is that required? Yeah. It is. Like anything worth doing, it takes hard work. And so you look at this scenario and you look at, what you just read there from Paul's perspective. He very clearly recognized where he came from. He very clearly recognized how bad what he was doing was. But he also knew, as Jenny said, he was all in. He did it with a good conscience. He worked very hard, but he was willing to give up so much to be able to do that, to be able to elevate others, to encourage others, to ensure that others didn't have any stumbling blocks in their way. And that's a little of where chapter 10 picks up, because he talks a little bit further about kind of the dangers of what that self-indulgence, as the author describes here, is. Somebody read the first 4 verses, please. Make it 5. First 5 verses. 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 5.
For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness.
Okay. So what's he referencing here? Yeah, coming out of Egypt, crossing over the Red Sea, all the things that took place there. He says, our fathers were under the cloud. What was the cloud? Yeah, it was the actual presence of God there with them. They passed through the sea, crossed the Red Sea. All were baptized into the sea. Did Moses take time to baptize a million people? No, baptized doesn't always mean baptized. Sometimes it just means engulfed, covered up, right? And so They had the walls of water on both sides of them. They all ate the same spiritual food. They all drank the same spiritual drink. They drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them, God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. What was it he was not pleased with? Grumblings. Okay.
Or doubt.
Say that again. Doubt. Did they? I was about to contradict myself in that question. Did they just all of a sudden leave God and turn and go focus on sinful things? It wasn't all at once, right? It took some time. It took some frustration. It took some difficult situations, some grumbling. It took doubt creeping in, and something for them to focus on that was not as physical and tangible as maybe they wanted, right? They wanted something that they could see. So we read the stories about making the golden calf. Okay, they got a little off kilter there. They were begging for food. They left Egypt. At least in Egypt they had food. Well, then God gave them manna. Well, that wasn't good enough, so he gave them quail. And well, then that got annoying. Or they're thirsty. He's like, here's some water. And Moses goes after it in a different way. And lets pride kind of get in his way on how he does it. So all these sort of things kind of get in the way. And the author here does a good job of kind of pointing out a lot of the things we touched on in chapter 9 about the importance of self-denial, because that's a little of what he's talking about here. He says, in matters of liberty, this is the first point, and kind of laid these three out. Eating meat sacrificed to idols, self-denial is necessary if by indulging one would lead another to stumble. Okay, we got that. Then he talks about if some action would be misunderstood and hinder the gospel. He denied that. Okay. Then the third reason for self-denial is what we get to here. If indulgent imperils one's soul, don't walk on the edge, attempting to live close to sin without falling. He says, if any man think he's standeth, take heed lest he fall. I've drawn this example in the kids' class, and you guys will get it. So you've got, you got God over here. We'll just put sand over here. Here's the division between the two. Why is it that we always try to live right here? Right? The most simple example in the world, but isn't that so much of where our conversation about liberties comes in? And then it slides over past liberties into things that are actual matters of right and wrong. And, are we following what God says? But we try so hard to skirt as close to that line as possible that I think we lose the point. We lose the focus on what it is that we're doing. I mentioned Cooper's driving. We were on a 2-lane road, and I was like, man, might not want to hug that center line, right? Why? Because what's on the other side is not going to be good. And so I think that's one of the things that we have to look at inwardly a bit when we're trying to figure out fill in the blank, a scenario, right? What do I feel about this? Where do I stand on this scenario of marriage and divorce and remarriage, as we've studied already in this class? Where do I stand on in this scenario of, again, fill in the blank? Are we coming at it from a point of, I want to know how much I can get away with? Am I, a young person, and I've got this, this good-looking person that I spend a lot of time with, and, again, how far is it I can go until, we're actually doing the wrong things? Right? These are the decisions that you have to work through and navigate. I mentioned the reference here in verse 1, talking about the waters on either side and how the cloud overshadowed them, and that was, God delivering them. We talked about the baptism there and what that was. Then in verse 3 and 4, I want to read this, what the author says, because I don't want to miss it here. He says, they ate the manna supplied from heaven, drank the water which came from the rock. Manna and quails and water were literal food. But in the sense that God miraculously supplied their every need, it was spiritual meat and drink. The manna given by God is compared to Jesus, who is the true bread that came down from heaven. We too have fellowship spiritually with God,
through doing His will as delivered by Jesus Christ. So, again, if you look at it as physical food and they got something to eat and they didn't die in the wilderness, cool. But if you consider the aspect that God gave them bread, God gave them bread from heaven, they needed it on a daily basis, and that's what sustained them. Look at that from the spiritual aspect, and we're no different. We follow right along with that. And if we don't involve ourselves in spiritual things on a daily basis, then that's when we land just like they did, on the wrong path. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
I think the same way, the reason they didn't inherit the land was their lack of faith.
Yep.
The bigger picture, not necessarily that they thought they're.
Well, that was verse 5, right? It
Right.
says, nevertheless, with most of them, God was not pleased.
So it's not the daily bread or whatever, it's that long-term goal of believing that no matter what's happening here, God has promised you something better. And it's that same mindset of, am I willing to give up this liberty knowing that it's gonna be so much, like, I can get we should be so focused on knowing God will keep His promise of our rewards that whether I get to do this liberty or don't get to do this liberty, it's like, doesn't even matter because we know what's better.
To your point there, when he says, with most of them, God was not pleased, what is most? It's all but two, right? All but two. Now the others had good moments, right? You know, they did some good things. Moses led them out of the wilderness, did some amazing stuff. But ultimately, of that whole crowd, only two made it to the promised land. And those were the two that didn't doubt. Those were the two that did trust God. Those were the ones that basically looked at impossible odds in front of them and said, no, we got God, we're good. The rest weren't able to do that. They allowed what looked like insurmountable odds to get in their way.
They didn't have faith in God.
How so?
They didn't believe that God would take them into Canaan and let them conquer the people.
Exactly.
So they believed the 10 versus the 2, even though the 2 said, we've got God on our hands, on our side.
From our perspective, being, you know, the year that it is, the cushy life that we have, with the book that we can read, the whole scenario, isn't that frustrating? Like it is for me. It's kind of like when you look at all that He's done for you so far. I mean, delivered you out of this, fed you from nowhere, got water out of a rock. I mean, delivered you from these people and those people, protected you here. The whole army's coming behind you, dropped the sea on them. I mean, to me that says God's got us, no matter what, we're good. Then when they get there and look at it, they're like, yeah, no, we can't do this. Now, as frustrating as that might be, don't we do the same thing all the time?
Yes.
Yeah. It's very easy to do.
And we got the whole Bible.
We got the whole thing revealed right here for us. We can see what He promised and what He delivered on those promises over and over and over and over again. Yet sometimes things get hard, and it's like, oh. Now, and when I say hard, I mean it might be just as hard as, you know, I'm a little light on money this month, or lost my job, or, you know, my girlfriend broke up with me, or, you know, my wife doesn't like me today, or whatever the case is, right? Or it might be as big as a spouse dying, a child dying, horrendous things happening, a flood killing hundreds of people overnight, right? I mean, things happen. And, you know, while we look at this and we might say, how could they not believe? How well do we do when those scenarios ramp up and get harder and harder and more difficult? That's part of why we need each other significantly, as well as God.
Well, we forget too in the wilderness, you talk about our Cush life, like, yeah, they had a cloud, fire, but they were walking every day, and that,
yeah.
that was rough.
Took them 40 years just to get a few miles, right?
Yeah. I mean, and just think, we don't even go through those kind of trials, and we struggle. No. And we think, how could they do that? But they probably were living a lot worse life than we were.
Yep. All right. Somebody read Go ahead and do 6 through 10, please.
Now these things occurred as examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things as they did. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. We should not commit sexual immorality, as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 of them died. We should not test Christ, as some of them did, and were killed by snakes. And do not grumble, as some did, and were killed by the destroying angel.
Okay. So that encompasses a bit of what we've talked about already is, okay, now these things took place. Let's use this example and learn from it. Don't be idolaters like some of them were. And in this context, it's probably talking about idolatry as you would think of it as violence. Carry that out to our context, anything that comes before God. Right? Don't lose focus on God. Don't focus on anything in front of Him. Okay, got it. The people sat down to eat, drink, rose up to play. We must not indulge in sexual immorality, as some of them did. And 23,000 fell in a single day. How did 23,000 fall in a single day? Do we know? It's in a plague. If you look back in, let's see.
Numbers 25.
You got it. Do you have it?
No, I got a footnote.
Okay. Go ahead and turn to that. I wrote it down.
What?
Numbers 25. And stay in Numbers after you read it, because I'm going to have you switch over to another chapter. Got it?
While Israel remained at Shittim, the people began to play the harlot with the daughters of Moab. So they invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor, and the Lord was angry against Israel. The Lord said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people and execute them in the broad daylight before the Lord, so that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to the judges of Israel, each of you slay his men who have joined themselves to Baal of Peor. Then behold, one of the sons of Israel came and brought to his relatives a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the sons of Israel while they were weeping at the doorway of the tent of meeting. Then Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, priest, saw it. He arose from the midst of the congregation and took a spear in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through the body. So the plague of the sons of Israel was checked. Those who died by the plague were 24,000.
Okay. So, small point here. This says 24,000. New Testament says 23,000. It's a contradiction. We throw it out, right? The Bible doesn't matter anymore because it contradicts itself. No, don't overly analyze the numbers here. A bunch of people died, right? I don't think they had quite a census situation going on there, but a bunch of people died, all because
23,000.
that's a lot.
I know.
That's a whole lot.
Yeah.
They lost sight. They lost sight of what was important, and they were punished. Side note here, but I'll never forget my dad saying this, and then it kind of clicking with me is, and I say this sometimes, and don't read too much into it, but set the Bible and the spiritual and the heavenly goal aside for a second, and just live the principles of the Bible, just based on the fact that it's principles here and live them. And what happens to things like plagues and sexually transmitted diseases and that sort of stuff? They disappear. They just disappear. They're gone off the earth if people just follow God. Interesting thing to think about. But in this scenario, because of what it was they were doing and their punishment here, is so many of them died. I said stay in Numbers over in chapter 21. We have the scenario of the bronze serpent. beginning in verse 4, it says, from Mount Hor they set out by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, and the people came impatient on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Again, why did it start? They're getting frustrated. They're impatient. They're getting antsy. Let's see. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? There's no food. There's no water. We loathe this worthless food. Like, we're tired of this stuff. Then God sent fiery serpents among the people. Kind of, it's like, you think it's bad now. This is the equivalent of your dad saying, I'll give you something to cry about. Right. If you didn't hear that, then I don't know where you grew up. The people came to Moses and said, we've sinned, we're sorry, like we've spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent, set it on a pole, and anyone who is bitten, and when he sees it, he shall live. Not, I'm going to get rid of them, and, I'll make all the pain go away. I'll give you a way to live, but you're still going to be punished for how you've kind of been behaving. Again, they lost a little sight, they started grumbling, they started complaining. If nothing else, take away the lesson here. What happens when you grumble and complain too much? Right? Put things in perspective. There's things I used to complain about that as I got older and have a different view. I don't complain about them anymore. Lots of examples that we can take from this scenario. Let me go back to 1 Corinthians. Okay. All right, we talked about this sexually immorality, the destroyer. Then he goes on to say, in verse 11, so we'll pick up there. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. Describe the person that thinks he stands. Who is he describing here?
He's really on his butt.
Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Just kind of answering that, going back to what we did, striving for the goal.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 lessons. You can't stop running.
Yep.
And then verse 27 says you got to continue to discipline your body to bring it into subjection. If they had done any of that, those Old Testament examples would not have happened. So if you think it's going to be easy,
Yeah. You said just keep running. I immediately thought of Dory on Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming. Right? Don't stop. Keep going. Right? Same principle. So you can learn things anywhere. So who is it though? Like how else would you describe this person who thinks he stands, that needs to take heed lest he fall?
I think he's saying believers, those who are in a right relationship with God. Don't think that you can't fall and be out of service to God. Just like the Israelites, at one time they were
God's people.
They were obedient. They were doing what God asked, but then they strayed and they had consequences, and so will we.
There's times when I think it would have been easy as an Israelite to think, I'm the chosen one of God. I mean, we're his people, right? Same thing for us. I mean, how many times have we said that, the Bible teaches a lot of people are not going to go to heaven, and a lot of people who think they're going probably aren't. Is that us, right? We think that, few there are that enter means the people who, they're not members of the Church of Christ. I mean, we've said it many times. There's a lot of people that claim Christ in that way who aren't going either because of the rest of their life and how they conduct themselves. Take heed lest you fall. As soon as you get overconfident, that's when things happen. We can all name examples of scenarios like that when somebody got a little overconfident, thought they had it all figured out, and then something happened to knock them down a peg or two. He says in verse 13, no temptation is overtaking you, that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide a way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. All right. One of the most misunderstood verses in the Bible, I think. What's he saying here? Is he saying, I know your wife died and your kid died and your dog died and you lost your job, but God won't tempt you any more than you can handle, you'll be fine.
Just saying very clearly, you're going to have those things happen.
Going to happen.
Buckle up, it's happening.
It's happened to people before, right? This isn't new. But then what?
Gives you a way to deal with it.
There's a way. There's a way. Were you going to say something? Sorry, I thought I saw a peripheral hand there. Okay. Yeah, and he's very clear here, but with the temptation, and if we're talking specifically about temptation and not just bad things happen, trials, we all have different temptations. I'm not going to ask you to name what yours is, but we all have them, whether it be, you know, what would you say, brisket? That's not a sin.
Brisket, cheese.
You know, whether it be, you know, drinking alcohol, lying, cheating, stealing, whatever, you name it, right? There's different things that tempt different people. When I grew up, I played baseball, and everybody in baseball seemed to smoke and dip, and that was just never a temptation for me. It just wasn't. Other things were. That's just kind of how life is. But with those, there is a way of escape. What did Joseph do when he was tempted? He turned and ran and left his coat behind. I'm out of here. Right? It might be as little as you got to turn and run. It might be that you have to call up somebody. Hey, I'm challenged with something right now. Help me through this. It might be that you have to remove yourself from a situation, from a job, from a group of friends. There is a way of escape. And I think that's one of the reasons why the wisdom of God in telling us to confess our sins one to another, to have a relationship with one another is so important. Because I'll tell you, if you don't talk about those things, you might think you're the only one who's ever dealt with a certain issue. I remember early on in my time here at this congregation, I mean, this would have been 14 years ago or so when we started coming. I remember having a conversation with someone, and they were talking about some challenges with alcohol. And the first thing they said was, yeah, I mentioned it to somebody, and they said, well, so-and-so has overcome that and dealing with it. Go talk to him. And I did. It was wonderful. I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. I mean, because there's people around you. That's part of what a group is. You know, I tried to record it, but I didn't get it. But Cooper said that I'm always right the other day. I didn't hit the record button fast enough, but he said it. I promise I did. But we were driving, and I was giving examples of things. And I was like, really? He's like, well, I mean, you know what I mean, Dad? Like, you've been driving for, you know, a long time. Okay, all right. But listen to people who've been there. Listen to people who've done it. Listen to people who've survived those challenges. And again, you don't know what offerings might be out there until you do get out there and you do discuss it. Okay. Other thoughts about those things?
I think if you wrap it back to our freedoms and liberties too, and taking heed lest you fall. If you think of all of Israelites' history, a lot of the times they were following the commands. It was the attitude that was wrong. It was their faith. It was that they were going through the motions of everything. So even if you go back to the liberty part, like you can be doing exactly what's in your freedom to do, but he's still inside things. You can still lose it if your attitude towards your brother and God is wrong.
And that's what it all boils down to. That's what we talked about, regulating it with love. In your discussion or in your consideration of whatever liberty you're trying to decide whether or not I'm going to hold fast to it, I'm doing this regardless of what other people think, or if I'm going to support my brother or sister.
A huge humility problem, right? And it's a servant problem, because you're serving yourself. That's when, if you ever look back and you look at all the problems that you've had or all the difficulties you had or where you fall away, if you look and ask who are you serving, you're usually serving yourself, right? That's when all the bad things happen. If you're serving others, it's really amazing to see where you can take your life and where you can go. I was talking to a young person just the other day, and she's, it's not Kate, she was in college, and she was going through some stuff, and I asked her about her job and what she was looking for and everything, and she goes, well, you know what, I really think I deserve. And I went, stop.
There you go.
Because you've already just ruined it, right? You don't deserve anything. You don't. And that attitude is what will take you down a path that will lead you to failure.
Yeah.
If you never walk in a room and think you deserve a thing, you'll be so much better for it. And we as Americans are so self-centered, and we've taught ourselves, even though we were raising our children. So when you're raising your children, you have kids and you're raising them, and you're asking, your question to them is probably, so what do you want to do with your life, right? What do you want to be? What do you want to do, right? Instead of going, who do you want to serve with your life? If you just rephrase that question, you can change their whole outlook and the way they center and the way that they perceive things. Change it from what do you not, don't ask them what they want. Ask them who they want to serve, because we all serve. You can be an auto mechanic and you can serve. Right? You're serving people. Ask them who they want to serve and change the concept, and that changes. You can really help a young person to come out of sin.
Well, you hit on it. What's the attitude of the world, right? It's not humility.
Yeah.
Right? It's either the opposite of humility, look at me, I'm the best, or it's the fake humility, look at my TikTok and how humble I was today. That's the point. I'm the most humble person in the world.
Yeah.
Thank you. The irony of that statement, so big, right? You mentioned the conversation there. I also mentioned the one earlier about talking to somebody about the hard work. And I was able to kind of weave that into a little bit of a spiritual conversation, because, one of the things I asked was, how is it that I've made it through, lots of changes and with a positive mindset, right? Companies reorganize and people get fired, and all these things happen around you. And I told them, I said, honestly, it's pretty simple. Like, I don't serve them, I serve God, right? And I work as unto the Lord, period, wherever that may be, right? And if you can maintain that attitude in a job, in school, and whatever, then you're going to get a lot further that way. Okay, we will pick up there in verse 14 on Sunday. That's puppy. Yep. You got a high energy, engage with me all the time kind of dog. That showed me one. I've only seen the one. And that was good too. That was oh, man. Yeah, it's gonna be a big one. I do? Hanging in there, Mama? Hanging in there?